It was aboard the Skeld ship when it happened aboard the Skeld. The year 2065. It's been months since the crew left Earth. A team of 7 were tasked to investigate a piece of debris that has been floating in space as it was thought to have come from an alien planet. They had just returned from their mission and were heading back home. Crewmates formally scurried all over the ship, jotting down notes on the clipboard as they did so. They communicated with each other on a walkie-talkie. "All good by Orange, over same with Black, over everything's all good here, how about you?" Purple asked Green. "Everything's fine at the reactor, how about you Yellow?" "Everything's fine at storage, Green, how about you Red?" "Nothing strange at security, how about you Brown?" "Everything's fine at the cafeteria, White, how is everything going on there?" No response came. "White? How's everything by your side?" But he was only met with crackling on the other side of the walkie-talkie. Brown became unsettled and slowly began walking around the ship, checking room after room. "White?" he called last time as he walked by the med bay. He opened the door and stopped dead in his tracks. White was there, disemboweled and lying dead on the floor. White had blood and intestines pooling at his side. Across the room, the lid of a vent lay ajar. Brown screamed and rushed to the cafeteria. He slammed down on the emergency button and the alarm was sounded. "Ladies and gentlemen, it seems that there is an imposter among us," Red announced that day. The gathered crewmates who sat around the table began to blame each other. "It's Brown, he found the body." "No, it's Green, Green is sus." "Yellow. Yellow. Enough," Red demanded. "We'll deal with it." With a vote that day, Green was shot out into space, left to float with the garbage and dead friend of the crew. As the cold got him and he began to freeze to death, and the oxygen began to leave his suit, he wondered why. He watched the ship float out of perspective as he floated in the abyss. He began to lose feeling in his body and his eyes closed. Green was not the imposter. But how many remain? Purple entered the science lab where Red was observing the specimen they had collected. "Hey Red. How you doing?" Purple greeted Red cheerfully. "Not good," Red mumbled. "Are we sure we did the right thing?" Ejecting Green. "Red, you don't have to keep blaming yourself. Green decided to go batshit and kill one of our friends. It's not your fault." Purple reassured him. "Yeah, I know, but we've known Green for months. I know you didn't like him, but he was a part of the crew, even he wouldn't go batshit and just off one of us. Which is why I'm here. The samples, the bacteria we collected from the asteroid a few months back, they're parasitic. There were 7 samples, but 4 died when we entered the ship again, so we had 4 samples, but now we have 3. Red got up and began pacing as he continued. "One must have possessed Green, and warped his brain and maybe even his physiology. But," Red said loudly, "according to my research, these parasites have a low IQ. Green was at the reactor. Green fixed the reactor. You need to be smart to do that." "So what are you saying?" Purple asked quizzically. "Maybe Green was not the imposter." Brown sat in his room crying, grieving the death of his lost friend White. Orange walked in and patted him on the back. "She's still with us Brown, she's still with us, we just can't see her, that's all." "You'll see her again," said Orange. "I just don't wanna die. I don't get ejected." Brown sniffled in his helmet. The crew rarely took them off out of fear of infection of space diseases. "They won't eject you, I'm sure that you're a delectable person." "Thanks Orange." Brown sniffed once. "It means a lot." "She was a delectable person," Orange said kindly. "Delectable? You mean delightful, right?" Brown said a bit calmer. Orange sat still for a while as a rip began to grow across his chest. Then his chest completely ripped open to reveal rows of jagged teeth and a large tongue that plopped out. Orange lunged at Brown and covered Brown's torso with his mouth. And with a sickening rip, decapitated Brown. Brown's intestines fell out of Orange's mouth as he began to chew Brown's torso. So he bent down and began to eat them. "Don't worry, I'm sure you're a delectable person," Orange said between his chewing. A delectable person indeed. Eventually things had to resume normality. The crew went on as usual, doing drills and making sure the ship remained intact. "Everything's fine at storage," Red to Black. "Over everything's fine by me." Black to Orange. "Over everything's fine by me." Orange to Purple. "Over all systems are operational and I'm ready." Purple to Brown. Nothing came out from Brown's end. Purple went to check on him, walking cautiously as she did so. She entered Brown's storm. As she did so, the sliding doors bumped something and caused it to roll to her feet. Purple looked down at it and saw that it was Brown's helmet. She gasped and slowly stepped into the room. In the middle of the floor was Brown's tattered suit piled in a heap, stuck to the floor in a pool of dried blood with bones protruding through rips and tears. She ran out of the room and into the hallway where she bumped into Orange. She was shaking and hysterical. "Whoa whoa whoa, calm down." Purple. Orange said. "What's wrong?" Green was not the imposter, she blurted out. But Red said the imposters would be dumb, so maybe we can still catch them. "I'll have to go sound the alarm." As she turned, Orange grabbed her arm and stopped her. She turned to Orange. Orange began to speak. "You see, he was wrong about that. We aren't too dumb." "What?" Purple asked, perplexed. In an instant, Orange morphed a mouth that covered his face and bit a chunk out of Purple's head. Orange snaked his large tongue into the wound and began to lap up Purple's brain matter. Red and Black began to look for Purple and Brown when the alarm sounded and the lights turned red. That could only mean one thing. The reactor has been sabotaged. Red and Black sped into the reactor room. As Red stepped towards the reactor, he was thrown back by a burst of steam. Red. Black rushed to help him off the floor. The alarm sounding and the reactor vibrating dangerously. Steam began to heavily emanate from the reactor and condense on their helmets. "We need to shut it down," Red said. He got up and rushed to press his hand on the hand scanner across the room on the wall. "Why isn't it working?" Red screamed in desperation. "There." Black pointed and rushed to the opposite side of the room to a separate hand scanner. "It needs 2 people to activate the cooling system." Black pressed his hand on the scanner and so did Red. The reactor rattled for a final time, released a final gust of steam. Then lay still. The light returned to normal. Red breathed a sigh of relief. "All right, now let's," Red screamed as he felt a pain shoot up his arm, then a soft thunk. He looked at the gushing stub on his arm and looked down to see his severed hand. He turned to Black, who held a large knife with blood streaming down the handle and dripping on the floor. "Why?" Red screamed again and fell to the floor as Black slit his Achilles tendon. "I've always hated you, Red. There's no way I'm letting you get paid more for this expedition than me." With that, Black began to stab Red over and over and over, staining the walls and floor with blood. Red screamed every time the blade pierced him, but then fell silent. Black plopped down on his back on the floor and began laughing cheerfully. He only stopped when he felt something wrong. He was thirsty. He got back up and ripped open Red's shirt. Red wasn't dead yet. He was getting there, but not yet. As he lay on the floor on his back, bleeding out and paralyzed, he watched Black rip open his shirt and put his lips to one of his, Red's, wounds. Black slowly began to suck the blood from one of Red's wounds. The taste of victory was excellent.